welcome back to my channel. Today I will be sharing with you how I got into the University of Michigan and specifically the Ross School of Business. I am home from break right now and I found this sign hanging on my wall that says, "Congratulations, you're in Michigan Ross." So if you're applying or you're curious about how I got in, I'm gonna break everything down: stats, extracurriculars, decisions, and how I managed to get into one of the top business schools in the country. So disclaimer, I applied in fall of 2022, so a lot has changed with admissions and especially the process of getting accepted into Ross. Not only has the acceptance rate dropped about 4 or 5% since I applied, but also Michigan has been receiving a record number of applicants. Last year they had 90,000 applications. The University of Michigan is still test optional, but they did change the SAT in 2024. So I'm not sure how that makes a difference or if it's more valued now that they changed it. Starting off, the decision to apply. So the University of Michigan was the only school I applied to in-state, and it was the only school I was willing to go to in-state. I knew I wanted to go into business, so I knew that I would only go to Michigan if I got into Ross. But Michigan did stand out to me. It really has it all. It's like the perfect mix of sports, academics, social life, and I knew I could have a great college experience at Michigan. But my decision to attend Michigan was solely based on if I got into Ross or not. Only wanting to go to Michigan for Ross is pretty common with students. I knew I wanted to do business and I didn't see any point of going if I wasn't gonna get a business degree. So the application process, I applied early action, which is non-binding, but it allows you to get a decision early on. It also allows you to get your application into the admission officer's hands early on. Because Michigan has so many applicants, most of the applications don't even get read. So it's really important to get your application in early into the cycle. It's non-binding, so you don't have to go if you get in, but it does give you a better shot of your application being read. And if you end up getting deferred, then you just get moved to the regular decision round. For Ross specifically, in 2022, you had to get into another school at the University of Michigan and then get into Ross. So there's 2 steps to the process. So with this process, if you got into Michigan but didn't get into Ross, you could still come to Michigan. But now with the new process called direct admissions, it's directly to Ross. If you don't get in, you can't come to Michigan. So I applied as an econ major to LS&A, which is funny to think about now because I don't like econ, so I'm glad I got into Ross. I used the Common App to submit my application to LS&A, and then there's a separate portal for the Ross application. I think there were 2 or 3 essays for the LS&A application, and then there are 2 essays for the Ross application, but it might have changed. And for my essays, I made sure to dive deep into the core values of Michigan. You can look up the exact values of Michigan. There are 10 of them, but I really dug into leadership, collaboration, initiative, and DEI. For the community essay, you have to write about what community you belong to, and this is not structured. You could be super creative with this. For my community, I wrote about being a part of the international kid community because I went to an international school for a year in high school. And then the next one was why Michigan, and a lot of kids write about classes or programs or the major they want to go into, but I don't recommend that. They're really looking for you to dig deep into their core values and connect those to your experiences. I can't remember exactly what I wrote about, but I'm pretty sure I wrote about being co-founder of a nonprofit organization. I think I connected that to teamwork or contributing change to the Michigan community. Not only do they want to hear about how Michigan will benefit you, but they want to hear about how you will contribute to Michigan. A lot of kids take this essay into a selfish approach, but you also want to look at 2 sides of it. Moving on to the stats that got me in, I had a 3.9 unweighted GPA and around a 4.3 weighted GPA. I took around 14 IB classes. I was in the International Baccalaureate program, which is kind of an honors AP program. And I also tested in it and received my IB diploma along with my high school diploma, obviously. So I took regular classes my freshman and sophomore year, and then my junior and senior year, I took all IB classes. They're basically like AP, like it's the same material and everything. And I did not submit my SAT score. My college admissions was kind of at a weird time. It was like kind of still coming out of COVID. So it was very test optional. Most kids didn't submit it. And I chose not to as well. Moving on to the extracurriculars part of my application, I co-founded a nonprofit organization with my classmates called Oxford Legacy, and we brought support to gun violence victims. I did this my junior and senior year. I was also director of communications, and I helped a little bit with the social medias. This was definitely the most valuable extracurricular of mine. It showed leadership, initiative, and also some like business related elements. The next one is I was vice president of my Spanish club for like senior year. I wasn't really too involved, but it was just something on my application. Next, I advocated for gun violence, so I was a member of Students Demand Action and March for Our Lives. I did a little bit of cold calling for an election, and also I participated in some of the rallies. I ran varsity track all 4 years, and I ran cross country for 2 years. I had a little bit of volunteer work. It wasn't much, but like I still did a few hours, so I ended up including it. I had a part-time job since I was 15, so I also included that. It's also something very important to put in your application if you have like any part-time jobs, even if they're small. And lastly, I included some of my hobbies. So I played the piano for my whole life. I went to an intensive summer camp and also got some like music awards there, so I included that as well. I used to sing in a choir as well, so including this part of my application shows that like I was well-rounded in both like the academics, sports, and like the arts. As for letters of rec, I had 3 letters of rec, but I don't remember which 2 I actually submitted. I had one from my English teacher, one from my math teacher, and one from my counselor. I would definitely recommend getting one from your counselor. Schools value letters of rec from school counselors. Now to move on to applying to Ross. For the Ross portfolio, there were 2 supplemental essays. The first one was about an artifact. You had to write about an artifact that showcased your learning in action, whatever the heck that means. And the second one was a business case discussion. So you had to find a problem in your community and talk about how you would solve it using business. For the business case one, my problem was access to healthcare. So I wrote about opening up a hospital in my town because we don't have hospitals within a 30-minute radius. For the artifact one, this might be confusing, but I was in a newspaper article for changing the timing system that we use for our track meets. So the article was the newspaper, and I forgot exactly what I wrote about for like learning and action. Now let's talk about the weight and the results. I applied early action, so I found out that I got into LSNA at the end of January. And then for Ross, they released their decisions in 3 waves in February, March, and April. So I found out in the middle of February that I got into Ross. So it was a 2-step process. After I got into LSNA, I was just waiting to hear about my Ross decision. So yeah, that is how I got into the University of Michigan and the Ross School of Business. Remember, it is not all about your grades, your test scores, your GPA. It's also about your extracurriculars, your essays, showcasing your values and like who you are in your application. My one tip would be to not focus on being perfect. You want to be authentic and unique in your application. Feel free to leave any questions or comments below. I'm always happy to help out. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe, and go blue.